What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall stock market, what news just came out that's affecting NIO and the markets, and what's happening with the data affecting this stock. Before I break anything down about what's going on with NIO and all these other tickers, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. Now, the offer ends in just 4 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So, looking at NIO, this thing was up 1.56% for the day. And this ended up pumping due to many other different economic factors. There was this news that came out that China is planning on spending $137 billion on infrastructure to boost its economy. And investing in infrastructure does tend to improve the economy for different countries, but the real question is what means would help to generate that money and where would that money be used for? This is actually going to be used due to an increase of the budget deficit, on these projects. And in essence, for the short term, this will boost the economy, I would say. And this is actually helping a lot of Chinese tickers. However, despite this news coming out and despite how awesome this is, I just want to warn everyone, tomorrow is going to be a new day because we have some very important data that's going to affect NIO and the whole US economy and also the stock market. So, what is the data coming out tomorrow? We have CPI coming out 1 hour before the market opens, and this is going to be very, very important. If we get CPI, this is going to be CPI year over year. If it's above 3.7%, this can become bearish for the stock market. If it's below that, it should theoretically be a bit more bullish. The market's not always super quick to react. Sometimes the reaction is delayed. So be very careful going into tomorrow and also on Friday. For core CPI, we want this to be around 4.1% or below that. If it's above 4.1%, that's going to be bearish for the markets. If it's 4.1% or below, that would be a pretty decent sign. So we're going to be watching this very carefully just to see what happens with the data. We're going to be watching our inflationary numbers, and this is going to cause a very big move for everything, including NIO. We also have the initial jobless claims report coming out. We want this to be around 208,000 and continuing jobless claims to reach this forecast of about 1.66 million. So going to be watching all of this for tomorrow to see how the jobs numbers are looking and CPI. CPI is going to be very important, so we'll see what this causes. And I can't really predict exactly what it's going to look like, but I can tell you that you have to be prepared for either way. Now, when it comes to earnings, we also have a couple of earnings for tomorrow. You guys can see Thursdays right here. We have Domino's Pizza, we have Delta, and we have a couple of others. And then for Friday, we have the big bank earnings, which are going to be very important. As far as the market went today, the market started off with a little pump before it ended up dropping quite a bit. And then as the market was sinking, approaching the FOMC minutes, we ended up seeing this news come out that most Fed members were backing a future rate hike, which was just confirming what the market already knew, which is nothing new whatsoever. It just added more certainty. And the market ended up kind of like pumping, which is a little ironic, but it still pumped when this came out, which helped NIO close even more green, which is a decent sign. Now, NIO also announced this new piece of news that came out that NIO received the Euro NCAP 5-star safety rating, and it also achieved the overall highest occupant protection score of all the models tested by the Euro NCAP since 2020. So very, very awesome news for NIO as they're getting very high safety scores, and their cars are becoming more and more reliable and more looked at in the European markets, which is great news for them. Now, looking at NIO, the volume is about 34 million, which is not bad whatsoever. Quite decent volume. And on top of this, you have to remember that the short volume is quite flat. Now, on top of this, price-price ratio is kind of flat too, not really changing too much. And we're starting to see the same buy rating from Deutsche Bank, which is not changing. And there's nothing really changing in the short interest, so all the data looks the same for NIO. So what's going to happen tomorrow, guys? I wish I could predict this, but I can't really predict this because it depends on what's going to happen with CPI. If CPI gives us some decent numbers, there's a good chance NIO is going to try to make its way up to 9.3 plus and start pushing even higher. As long as we have a decent CPI, as long as it's at the targets I mentioned or below them, if it's hotter than expected, right? If we see CPI kind of hot, this could cause NIO to start tanking towards 8.75, if not below that, towards 8.6. So we're going to be watching this very carefully just to see what the big move is going to be. And it's going to be very, very telling for what NIO ends up doing. As for SPY, this is going to be very interesting. If we're bullish tomorrow, I just want to note that the bullish case is going to be us trying to fill this gap up here. We're starting to fill it, and this could take us up to about 438.86 to almost 440 on SPY if we end up filling this gap. We're still technically below or very close to where this daily, actually, I think we're a bit above it, the daily 50 EMA is. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. If we end up getting a bearish piece of data tomorrow, so if CPI is harder than what the projections are, we could see SPY come back down to 432 or break below that. So watch that very carefully. We will see what happens from there. As far as Tesla goes, I just want to mention that Tesla is still holding up decently. It still has a bullish cross on the daily PPO. If we're really bullish on Tesla, it has the potential to push up towards this 272.5 area, this gap resistance at 272. If it breaks above 268, there's potential for Tesla to get very close to 270 to 272. If we get the bearish case off CPI, we could see Tesla end up dropping towards this 260 area. If it breaks below that, then 256 is going to be on the table alongside 252. So watch this very carefully. We will see which way Tesla moves. As of right now, it's looking a little bit red, but we will see what happens with CPI. For Aapl, if we are bullish tomorrow, if we get a good CPI, if the numbers look decent, Aapl could try to fill this gap towards 183. If we see the opposite of Aapl fails and we end up getting a bearish CPI, Aapl could end up sinking towards 178 or below that. The charts are looking a bit more bullish, but just to be safe, you want to be watching to see if this ends up helping them. For Nvda, if we get some bullish CPI numbers, we could see Nvda try to fill this gap all the way up to about this 470 area. And if it breaks that, 472 is going to be on the table. If Nvidia rejects off this current level and we end up getting some bad news from CPI, we could fill this gap all the way back down to 458, and then start dropping even lower towards 457 or the 5 EMA, and even lower levels than that if that ends up happening. So watch that very carefully. And then finally, for the triple Q, I think I accidentally skipped this. For the QQQ, if we're bullish tomorrow, this thing could make the full measured move and start pushing for this previous resistance becoming support. Previous support becoming resistance. This 372 area. 372.5 to 375 can be tested if we're bullish after CPI. The daily candle does look more bullish, so it's looking that way, but nothing is guaranteed. If we end up failing, we could come down to this gap area at 368, and if we fail around there, we could see this thing start dropping towards I would say 366 or even below that very, very soon. So we're going to be watching this very carefully to see if this thing breaks down to 366 or if we pump it towards 372.5. Once again, guys, I am sorry that I can't give you guys a very in-depth prediction today. The daily candle on NIO is still looking decent. It's not looking that horrible just yet. We can't make any claims yet. Going to be watching this gap on NIO. If we get some bad CPI numbers tomorrow, CPI is harder than expected. Expect NIO to come down closer to the mid 8s. If CPI is lower than expected or at expectations, we could see NIO pumping towards the mid $9 area. 9.3 is going to be a target to watch for, which is the previous resistance all the way up here. We also have this gap resistance at 9.5 on the daily, so we're going to be watching that 9.3 to 9.5 area. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. I really hope this video was helpful and brought more insights about what the market could end up doing. So be prepared for anything and just be ready for the data, and we will talk more about what happens afterwards. All right, so we will see what happens with CPI. See you guys very soon, guys. I am sorry I can't really predict anything this time around, but once we see the data, that's going to give us more insights. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next one. Thank you, and peace out.